All right, welcome to the FileCenter training video. This is going to be focused on the FileCenter PDF editor default view settings. And so these particular topics have probably been some of the most requested pieces of information from our support team. And so I just really want to break this all down for you so that it can be something that you can go in and make those settings and those changes. One thing just keep in mind that this is not a global change, so it doesn't, just because you change it on yours doesn't mean it changes it on everyone else. And so these are just going to be for your individual computer, and then that way you can have your settings and other people can have their preferences set up. So speaking of preferences, that's exactly what we're going to do. Is we're going to go in and set our preferences in the PDF editor to be whatever we want. So number one, first things first, is to be able to go in and get this taken care of, we just need to be inside of the PDF editor itself. Now you can choose to have a PDF open if you want to, or you can go in and just click right here on the PDF editor. So I can just come up, click right here on PDF editor, and I can go ahead and make my changes. Now sometimes you may want to look at it and see, okay, well maybe I want to look at how that's going to actually look. And so I want to go ahead and double click on my PDF editor with a document in it. So first two things that I want to just kind of point out is, number one, this is a really massive view of this page, right? I can't see everything that's there. And so while we're talking about this, there's going to be three different settings that we are going to set the defaults to of our view. And then I'm going to talk about two different bonuses of information that we'll cover just to help you out as well. So the first things first is that we're looking at this, and you can actually see right here, kind of along the top of the toolbar, we can see the actual zoom percentage that we're at right now. And currently right now it's at 470%. You know, and that's really big. Now on some people's computer monitors it might be okay, right? But here we are, we're at 470%. That's something that we want to fix. Number two issue that I see here is over here on the left-hand side, I do not see my thumbnail pane or my bookmarks pane, whichever one I have selected, or whichever ones that you have selected. And so we want to fix that too. And then this being a one-page document is going to be something that we'll talk about here too, is there's some differences and another view that we can actually go in and set as a default and make those tweaks as well. So for us to do this and change our preferences, what we want to do is we want to come up here along the top to the Edit menu and come drop down to the very bottom to where it says Preferences. What that's going to do is it's going to pop open our window, and then we're going to be able to select, and you can see that there's a whole list of all these different preferences that are available here. I'm only going to focus in this particular video on page display settings, and even more so, like I'm only focusing on this top section right here. Okay, so the initial display versus the page display. So from here, we want to come in and we want to point out that the default view right now on all of these are automatic. And so the very first one is the default view, and that means more of the actual display of what we're looking at. So the page itself right now. And so when I come in, I hit that drop down, there's four options. You can have automatic, page only, bookmarks pane and page, or thumbnails pane and page. Okay. So this is going to be something that's going to be up to you on what you want to have selected. My preference for my user setup is that I want the thumbnails and the page. So for me, I'm going to come down here and select this box, or this option from the box. Then on top of that, you'll notice that this box right here is checked. And if you read this closely, it says, hey, we want to restore the last used view of the document, custom layout, and visibility of panes such as bookmarks pane, thumbnails pane, etc. So what this really means is that if we check this box, that if we make any kind of tweaks or changes while we're in here doing a view of the document, the next time we open it, it's going to have those same things, those same settings. So I don't necessarily want to do that. I don't want to do any, I don't want it to go back to a custom layout and visibility. I want it to always come back to my default view. So I'm going to uncheck this box. Okay. The next one here is down here below where it says default page layout. And when we see this default page layout, there's multiple options here. There's automatic, single page, there's 2 pages, there's continuous, there's 2 pages continuous, and then it has some options with being able to show like a cover page there too. For me personally, my preference here is going to be a single page. That's just what I like to see. You're going to want to play around with this and maybe play around with it even before you actually come in and set up your default settings. And I'm going to show you as part of the bonus information of how I would play around with it to just see how I want to do things, okay? But again, I've already said that my preference is single page. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then on this third one, this is probably the one that is the most frustrating for all of our users. Is again, like when we just came into this particular document, we saw that it was at 470%. You might not even be able to see all the document when it's blown up that big, right? And so this is where we come in and we set up our change or our default of how far in of a zoom, like in and out, that we want to be able to start with. And so you can obviously see there's automatic, but there's all these ranges of percentages here as well. So you can go from 6,400%. So if you're making any kind of changes with maybe some images that you really want to get really detailed on, that might be something that you want to do, right? But for the most part, we're business users. We're using this to look at documents, and we're not going in there like looking at pixels, right? So 6,400% is not going to be something that we're going to want. You can play around with these percentages here. Obviously up here along the top, when we saw this 470%, you could hit a drop down, and all these same options that I see right here in this drop down are going to be the same. So you can kind of play around with that and make it your own of how you want it to be. Now again, my preference that I like is I actually like coming down all the way towards the bottom where I see actual size, fit width, fit page, or fit the visible. And for me personally, I like fit page. That is, I want to just see the whole page, and then I can do my own zooming if I want to going forward. Okay, so these are the settings that I want. Now you'll also notice that this box also is checked to restore the last used page layout and zoom settings. Again, if you make any kind of custom setting change when you're coming in and looking at a document, it's always going to just revert to whatever that last change is that you made. So if you had zoomed in really far, it's going to remember that. So I want to also come in here and uncheck that box here too. Now I'm going to click on apply, and then I'm going to come in and click OK. Now normally if you just click apply, it means that you're maybe going to make some other changes here too, but in this particular case, I always like to be safe, so I hit apply and then OK to close out the menu. All right, so now we've talked about those 3 different settings. The layout itself of what I'm seeing when I first come into the editor. Do I see the page and also the pane over on the left-hand side with either bookmarks or thumbnails? Again, I like the thumbnails, so it's going to, when I reopen the file back up, it's going to show up with my thumbnails. Then we also talked about the zooming or the zoom itself. So like, again, come up here, you can play around with this. You can see that it has all the same options basically. And so you can come in and say, I want to fit the page, or I want to fit the width, etc. Okay, or you can play with percentages. The other one was like how we were going to have the scrolling, or how we looked at the actual document itself. This is where this bonuses that comes into play is down here in the bottom right hand corner that we want to play around with. Is that you can hover over, like you'll see a single page, and if I click on that, that is going to show me just the page, right? Just that one individual page. In fact, let's come up here, we'll click on fit page right now. And so what this would do is if I had more than one document or one page to this document, then I would need to navigate typically down here in the bottom middle, and I would have to click back and forth to go through the pages, right? So that's up to you. For me personally, that's how I like it to be starting out. Usually I'm looking at the very first page. Now, sometimes though, like I don't want to necessarily do that. I want to have it really simple, and sometimes I'm at home and I have a 49-inch super widescreen monitor, and it's really nice, and I can display lots of pages at the same time. So some of those things that I typically will do is I will switch it to 2 pages, and I might want to say 2 pages with continuous, right? So you can come in and play with these different icons down in the bottom right-hand corner to determine like which one that you want to play around with, then go in and then you can make your change to your default settings under the preferences, okay? So bonus number 1. Bonus number 2, and this is really important to understand, is that when we look at the screen, you know, right now my monitor is a 32-inch monitor, and I have it at the highest display settings that it will allow, right? It's like 1900 by whatever, 1082 or 1080p, right? And so everyone that is probably listening to this, you guys all have different monitors. You don't have an LG monitor that's 32 inches and like me, right? And so that's really important to understand, because whatever settings that you're going in and setting up, it might look different depending on the computer monitor that you have. If you have a 27-inch monitor, or you have a really old monitor and it's like 21 inches or 22 inches, then everything's going to look a little different, right? So play around with which monitor you want. For me, again, I have this really nice 32-inch screen monitor here at home. I've got, you know, 2 32-inch monitors there at home as well, but then I also have a 49-inch widescreen, ultra widescreen monitor. I also have a big 50-inch TV that sits right next to me that I can put FileCenter up on, and you know, the settings are obviously going to be different, and I want to be able to see more information. So play around with the settings of what you want, so that way, and maybe you're going to choose which monitor you're always going to have FileCenter displaying on, so that you can go in and basically have those individual settings, those default settings set up on a regular basis, so that every time you come in to edit a document and view something here, that allows you to go in from that point forward and constantly be the same every time you open up a document, creating or saving more time, but creating more efficiency. So hopefully this will help you out. Hope you found that information helpful. So please go in, play around with those. That would be my call to action to you, is get in there, play around with those default settings so that you can figure out which one you want to be able to have for your view of the PDF.